so we have been unable to fill the open position we have. But like I said, Carrie has a plan, and I think it's a good one.
Mary, when you said was accredited, are you saying that it's not?
When we had our accreditation recently, that was one of their recommendations.
Okay.
Yeah. No, we did well in our
accreditation. We did very well. So we have 3.5. We have 3.5 ed tech positions that are unfilled. They've been unfilled most of the or all of the year, all year. And what you're going to see in Holly's presentation was a recommendation for her to cut those positions. They're not a total loss of staff because she's asked to replace the 3.5 people with a new teacher. And what that does is it makes for smaller class sizes, which is a big deal. But it also means instead of paying for benefits for 3.5 people, you're paying benefits for one person who's more highly trained. And so I think she's got a really good plan there. And again, we have a difficult time filling the ed tech positions anyway. So we're hoping this is a good solution, and you'll hear more about that. We typically have quite a bit of money in each school's budget for classroom books. This is their classroom libraries. It might be for books for their book closet that they share for reading groups. And each year, especially at the elementary level, that money can often sit there and be unspent, or it's spent randomly without a purposeful goal of getting books that meet our curriculum. So we have there is some cut. We had like a total of $11,000. About $8,000 of that has shifted to district lines, which will be under the direction of Amy. And what we're going to do with that is we're working on new science and social studies curriculum. So she will work with grade level leaders, and they will identify some anchor texts for science and social studies. So there'll still be money going into the classroom, but it will be spent purposefully to match our curriculum. And the teachers are excited about that, and we're excited about that.
So overall, is that cut like $4,000?
Yeah, about $3,000, I would say. There's about a $3,000 reduction there. But it looks like it's more because you're going to see it's all out of the building lines, but it's not really a loss. It's doing the same purpose, just with a little bit different location. Professional development has been pretty much wiped out of our classroom at our school level. And again, we have our Wednesdays where Amy's doing a lot of professional development on with our curriculum work. So that's our priority. And what we have done is we've reduced or almost eliminated the money for individuals to go to conferences in the district money. And we will be using some Title II grant money for that purpose, and also some proficiency-based diploma money that we get from the state for that purpose. But there certainly will be less money for individuals to go out of the district to conferences. And that's a bit of a sacrifice, but it's not a huge one, because what we know from the research on professional development is that internal professional development that actually is on-the-job training has a much higher impact on student learning than when a staff member goes off to an individual conference. So again, that was a cut that's usually there's some money there, and at the elementary level there's no money at all for that. Library books. We were spending about $15 per student on library books, and have been doing that since Mike Wilhelm was here. He increased the amount we were investing in our libraries, and this year we cut that back to $10 per student. So there's a reduction in how much money we're investing in the library at this time. And our conversation was, do we feel good about what we have in our libraries right now? And the answer is yes. And that money was not just maintaining, but it was developing our libraries further. And now we're in a place where we're saying, okay, that's one area if we have to cut, we feel like we can cut back a little bit. We had an ELL position, 1/3 of a position. That's for our English language learners. We now only have 2 students that are English language learners. So that has been cut from $16,000 to $10,000. You never know how much money you're going to need for that line, because if one student moves in, you might need a full-time person, because you have to provide the services at the level they need. But right now, we think, I think we're figuring $3,000 or $4,000 this year, so we think $10,000 gives us a little buffer in case another student or 2 moves in. Cell phone contract. Linda did a lot of research for us and got to the bottom of our phone expenses, which was really helpful. We were paying about $60 to $65 a cell phone a month, and our administrators all have phones, and some other staff. And we now, going forward, will have a contract where it's $35 a cell phone, except for the administrators who have a hotspot, and it'll be $45. So we are saving, I think it was at $4,300 on our cell phone contract, which is a great savings. So having the staff that can look into all the details and get some savings for us is a big deal. Our heating system at Minot Consolidated School, that was in John's CIP budget. It cost $175,000. Our board knows about this already, but we are holding off on replacing that system, and we're putting in an application for a building project. And of course, if you get a building project in the works, you don't want to spend $175,000. So we are going to have to do a $10,000, $11,000 patchwork to get us by for a little while longer, but at this point we're holding off on that. And then the other thing that we're looking at, it's currently in here, and John and Tom and I are having conversations about this, but we have an open mechanic position since December. We have not been able to fill it. And you remember we used to have one. We worked really hard to get 2 mechanics. Our inspections and our work has really, on our buses, has really improved a lot. And so we hate to lose a half-time mechanic, but at this point we're thinking if we can get by with a half-time mechanic and just send out projects that are, that if we, are urgent, if we can't keep up with them, that would save some money. So the current budget you're going to see has that half-time mechanic, and we're doing a little research with Gray New Gloucester and some other districts to see if they have any, if they could share services for a half-time person, because we've been unable to fill it at all. And John's working on that. So that's one of those cuts that we don't like. We think we worked hard to get that, and we may be asking for that to come back. But right now, it's not in the budget.
And my memory is when we put that position in, we put it in because it actually saved us money, because we were spending so much money sending our work out. So I think that one's a hard one to figure out.
Exactly how much can you cut before you start sending things out? And that's kind of where we are right now. We're really looking into that. And if we could do a regional collaboration somehow, that might be be our best case scenario. But it's all in the works, and like I said, John's working on it right now, so he may have information in the next few weeks. Any questions? I know I covered a lot there. So positions to watch. Certainly if we have to make greater cuts because the governor's budget ends up being the final budget, then we will be looking at administration, we'll be looking at athletics, we'll be looking at support staff, we'll be looking at teaching staff, and because the only way to find hundreds of thousands of dollars is staff, because 80% of our budget is staff. And this is where the work gets hard, and that's why I'm putting this up here to say, we know that probably the budget we're going to be sharing with you today will not be the final budget if we don't get more funding. One of the things I did want to say is there's a few positions we're watching that we've been kind of watching for a year now, is a kindergarten at Minot Consolidated School. Right now they only have 16 pre-K students, so they won't need 2 for kindergarten teachers if that doesn't change. The challenge comes is that not everybody sends their child to pre-K, but most send it to kindergarten. So we could have a big increase, and that might not be a consideration at all. We may not even know the numbers before the budget goes out and be able to make a decision there. So that's, again, one of those tricky positions. And then,
can I just add one thing to that?
Sure.
So we gained 9 kindergarten kids between the school year 15-16 and 16-17.
Yeah.
So we're hoping if we can gain 9 or 10 kindergarten students that aren't currently in our pre-Ks, then we can have enough students.
If Minot even gains 5 students, we will keep a kindergarten teacher, because you can't have more than 20 in a classroom, unless you could add an ed tech. It's just not the best case scenario for 5-year-olds to have 20 of them in a classroom, or more than 20 if you can help it. So so we're watching it. 16 is a no-brainer. 21 is 2 teachers, and so like Kim says, you don't cut a position that you're then going to need to add back in in August or September. So that's going to be really a difficult one. Oh, okay. And Aaron?
When you say administration of athletics, how deep, what level, do you have any idea what positions or what programs? I mean,
So
are there things on the top of your mind right now?
I have ideas. I would love not to share them today, because one of the things that's happened is because we have, we just got the 279s, we haven't talked to staff. I mean, we're one day back in, so we don't want to panic people.
Sure, no,
we're going to look for the least painful positions, of course, but these are people's livelihood.
Yeah.
And we want to make sure we do it in a thoughtful way, that we don't cut positions that we, regret later, and some, that we can still meet our obligations to provide a well-rounded education to everybody. So yes, we're certainly working together as an administrative team to identify, like, part of it is you look at your 279, which is your subsidy counts, and you say, where are we over? And sometimes that helps, and sometimes it doesn't, because our values are different than what the 279 might be. And an example I used last night at our building meeting is, we want to have a nurse in every building, but subsidy doesn't pay for a nurse in every building. So this board has been, our school board has been very supportive of having, we don't have an RN in every building, but at least an LPN or an RN in every building, because we have so many medically fragile children that we feel like it's, it's a kind of a standard expectation now. So there are some things like that. Athletics, we get about $58,000 in subsidy for athletics, and we spend way more than that. We know it's part of a well-rounded education to provide an athletic program. But 279s can give us some ideas of where you're over EPS and where you're, where you might go to look for some positions. But it's going to be difficult because, like I said, it's staff. You don't want to cut staff, and we're just hoping the legislature comes through and we don't have to. But that's where we are.
When do you expect you to actually be able to share the specifics in this process?
Probably in another week.
Okay.
Maybe two, but we're as an administrative team, we're working hard on it right now. I mean, I worked on it all vacation, and I know Stacy worked hard, just getting the numbers crunched for us. So it's not going to be long. We just want to make sure we do it in a thoughtful way, and that people are properly informed, so they don't hear word of mouth that, oh, somebody mentioned this position or this subject or this whatever.
It would be inappropriate for them to watch this video and find out that their job could be in jeopardy.
Yeah. And again, we don't have all the numbers yet, so we're really just when they put something out 1 week, the day before vacation, it really sets you back because nobody's around to actually work on it with you. And when I say support staff, we have people all over the district. Like Holly's already cut 3.5, so there's a few checks there, but we still have to look. You have other support staff as well. All right, so new requests. There are a few things that we know we need. Luckily, some of them aren't costing a lot of money. So we've been approved for 2 more buses and 1 minivan. But we have 3 coming off lease, so there's no budget impact or limited budget impact on that. And so that's a good thing. It helps us to maintain our fleet, and it doesn't cost additional money. We know we need a grade 1 position at Elm Street School. This year, how many kids in your classroom, Ryan?
22 and 23 in kindergarten.
In kindergarten. And you're not allowed to have more than 20 in kindergarten, so we added ed tech to support those numbers and bring the student-teacher ratio down. But again, you want highly qualified teachers teaching your youngest kids. That's where that impact of high class sizes has been shown. So that position is required, and what I'm going to do is, instead of adding one into the budget, I'm going to use Title II funds, and I'm going to do a class size reduction grant for next year. And so there won't be a budget impact on that. And what we usually would spend that money on is professional development. So again, when I was saying there would be less money in professional development, that also impacts the professional development. But we have a lot of internal time, like I said. So we feel comfortable doing that, and I think that's the right way to go. And the next bullet here is linked to that one above. So we've added $20,000 of curriculum development money into our local budget.
Bless you.
that is what would normally have been in the grant. So the grant now, we have a Title I, a grade 1 teacher, which will be about $50,000. And so instead of having the $50,000 for the curriculum work, we're going to have $20,000, but it will come out of the local budget. And it means it's a savings of $30,000 to the local budget. So that's why we're doing it that way. Yes.
Well, if we have to cut a kindergarten teacher at Minot, would you consider moving one
Absolutely.
over, and then we wouldn't have to touch the Title II for that?
Yes.
Because she's already, okay.
Yes, if, or you move it and you have a savings, but yeah, you can certainly, you want to look at all of your money from federal funds to local funds to state funds, and you are strategic in where the best, use of those are, so that you're using all of them purposefully, all toward, to meet our strategic plan.
Okay.
So that's kind of how we look at it. We have all of that money on sheets, and we say, how are we going to spend this money to make sure we get the best bang for our buck?
Can I just add to that? So thinking about that, Minot is going to, and this is a little bit off the subject, but Minot is going to need another teacher in 5th grade next year that we don't currently have. So whether that shift moves from K to, or something shifts within the Minot school, we don't know that yet.
Yeah, we're
So,
not planning a reduction in force because typically you have open positions. So we're not really worried if we have to lose a 1st grade position. We're not thinking we're losing a staff member
We wanna
for
keep-
that purpose.
yeah, we want to keep.
Functional life skills, this is going to be in Holly's presentation, but this is what we were saying, she cut 3.5 ed techs to get a teacher. This is currently in the budget, and that does have a budget impact, except it's been offset by the ed tech, so we've actually saved some money in staffing there. And then we need to upgrade our financial system, which is called ADS, and so there is some funds in our budget for upgrading that financial system. And I can't remember how much, Stacy, do you?
Well, it's in the E-rate money.
Oh, yeah, so we're using grant money for that. It's to improve your technology system, and so I might put no budget shift on that. Again, using any grant money or other options that we have that come in that can save on the local funds.
So these really aren't new requests, they're just more creative shifting around of resources and reallocating needs.
Yeah,
It's
they're
not like
all
we're
really
growing in a
new.
different
Yeah,
area.
they're all right. They're all new requests, but it is like the 1st grade is a new position. The buses are new, but you're right. It's really a maintenance.
It's not additional, it's just we're reallocating.
Yeah,
things
these are
around.
all pretty much, the functional life skills, I don't know if we can say it's essential, but we feel like these are kind of all
Yeah.
essential and not, like in the regular budget for maintenance of effort.
I just want to make sure everybody who watches this and understands we're not adding things at a time that we need to be
Right.
tightening up. We're just
Yeah.
reallocating and being creative.
Yes,
Okay.
So the functional life skills are just for special ed students?
yes.
Okay.
So I'm just going to wrap up here, summary of fixed cost. So, as I was talking about fixed cost, salary, retirement, insurance, and then the unfunded mandate for pre-K, that total fixed cost, $682,000. So you can see why we are concerned about a budget when you have a fixed cost increase of $682,000. That's a 3.28 increase before any other things were considered. And then when you add a loss of $289,000 overall from our state subsidy, that puts the local increase at $926,000. And that's why we're concerned. That's why we're assuming we're going to need to cut some staff if the governor's budget stays where it's at. And so coming before you today, letting you know this is the numbers you're going to see, but it's probably not going to be the last numbers you see. And that's a little different than in the past. I mean, we've had some adjustments where we said these are our priority items, but right now there are no priority items because we're just trying to cover our basic needs. And hopeful that money will come in and we'll get some of them back, but it's going to be a little bit different budget season than it's been in the past because of the unknowns and the priorities that we have. And as Stacy was helping me out last week understanding, part of the problem is because so much has been shifted to the local. And that's what we'll see. So Stacy's going to talk to you. I didn't give you this sheet because these numbers are going to change every time we make a change, and we don't want to have too many of these sheets that are different out and about. We want to, kind of keep it contained at that. I don't know if you can see that pretty good, huh? So Stacy, do you want to talk a little bit about our revenue?
Sure.
And I'll try to help a little bit with moving my arrow if you're to the point where you are. I got experience at that last night. Amy made a little bit of fun of me.
So the first thing I want to do is apologize to Tina because the numbers that were on that last sheet were the numbers we had yesterday up until 3 o'clock. She worked frantically over vacation, her and I exchanging numbers, and things changed quite a bit. And she met with the administrators at 4 o'clock yesterday afternoon with the changes that I had gotten at 3 o'clock. And so I got her all the expenditure changes, and while they were in the meeting, I worked on the revenue changes. So this page that I did email her yesterday at 5 o'clock is the change, has the changes on them. So you'll see that 782,000 where the arrow is. That was the 926 on her prior slide. So that's how much work has been done already on this budget with cuts with Tina and the administrators. So starting at the top, this is the local requirement from the state. As you're probably familiar with, we talk about that each year. The state has a mill expectation for each town, and it's based on the valuation. And it's based on the state valuation, not the town valuation, which is what the tax bills are based on. So there was an increase in Minot and Poland for the town valuation, but a decrease in Mechanic Falls, and that's why you'll see a slight reduction for Mechanic Falls, because with the lower valuation, the mill expectation was a little lower.
So the local drop in mill rate means the required local is less than it would have been at the current mill rate, right?
Yes,
That's
yes.
how that works.
Thank you, Tina, for reminding me that. The mill expectation for this budget, FY17, was 8.3. Right now, proposed for FY18 is 8.29. So there's also a slight reduction that the state is requiring locals to raise.
Okay.
Moving to the state revenue, you'll see the reduction of $287,000. And a good chunk of that is, like Tina mentioned, where the governor is proposing not funding system administration. The next section down of other revenue, which is at the bottom, those are revenues for different sources that we get. We have one student left that we will be getting tuition for. This year we have 2, but one of those students is graduating. So next year we'll only have tuition for 1 student. And I believe that student will be a junior or a senior next year. So we may only have 1 or 2 more years that we'll realize that revenue. The E-rate is phasing out. We'll only be getting that for a couple of more years for the current things we get them for, which is cell phones and telephones. I know Linda's working on putting proposals in for upgrades to the, is it the internet? Wireless network. So we can continue to get money for that. But the existing revenue stream that we're getting right now for E-rate is phasing out.
Oh, the bottom line, total of all revenue, is that what you're trying to see,
Yeah.
Stace?
Oh, and the fund balance.
Okay, do you want me to do the next? Oh. Sure. So
The fund balance, as you know, is each year when the budget closes out, any funds left over roll back into our fund balance. We're not allowed to spend those without getting authorization in a subsequent year. We are allowed to maintain 3%, and right now we have $605,205. So we're proposing to split that right in half and use $379,125 for FY18, which will leave us the same amount in reserve.
next slide, or the rest of this? Do you want, is this what you want?
I'm going to go back up to the additional local. And so once all of those revenues are calculated, anything left to fund the expenditure budget has to be shared by the 3 towns called the additional local. And right now, as you know, the funding for that is 90% valuation and 10% enrollment. And so the current budget, at the bottom, you'll see the increase of
$23,000?
Yes. And so because we have that big decrease from the state of $322,000, If you add that to the state money, if you add the state money together with what's required, which is the top of that 8.1 million, and the additional local, it leaves the $2,441,596 that gets shared by the 3 towns.
So there's a pretty big increase from 1.6 million additional local to the 2.4 million additional local. And again, that's because the governor's budget is shifting so much more money to the local, and that's our challenge.
Right.
That was the piece I was missing until, I saw the decrease and I thought, oh yeah, 289,000, that's not good. But then when you actually looked at how much is shifted to the local, that makes that impact a lot worse.
And this slide just shows the total with the required local and the additional local that each town would need to raise.
So the good news is over. No, we have worked really hard to make sure, like I said, a lot of hard work has gone into making sure that our budget is fiscally responsible as we can, but